representing 18 different institutions, including 2 international teams from Romania and Canada, I guess. Yeah, ooh. It's inspiring. Yeah. It's truly inspiring to see such a diverse and talented group ready to showcase their hard work and innovation. We are looking forward to a day filled with insightful presentations, spirited competition, and valuable connections. To officially commence our event, it is my honor to introduce a leader whose vision and unwavering support have been instrumental to our institution and events like this. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to the President, Dr. Frederic Bonato.
Thank you, Dr. Kim. I was just scrambling to find a pronunciation of a word in my address here, and maybe I'll get through it. No, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I don't know. I didn't get the proper one. I'm here really just to welcome you. This is a great event. Welcome to Manhattan University. This is the 10th annual competition. Business analytics is such a, I think the dean knows, I feel very strongly about business analytics. I think it's one of the technology-rich parts of the business world that will not go away for maybe ever. All right, it's so important. Before we get started, though, I'd like to express my sincere appreciation
that during the first 4 months of 2025, the U.S. national debt is projected to reach approximately 30 trillion, with borrowing expected to total around 838 billion. The unprecedented level of local and global debt poses significant challenges to economic health, including upward pressure on interest rates, increased debt serving costs, and slowdown in public investment. Last Friday, as you guys know, Moody's downgraded the U.S. credit rating from AAA to AA1 due to increasing financial challenges, including the growing budget deficit and the high borrowing costs associated with the rolling of current U.S. debts. Today's series involved an informal fireside chat between David and me, following by a Q&A session during which the audience can ask questions. So we can start. Two? Okay, both of them are on. Okay. Can I have hold both of them? Or?
You can. Trust my voice is loud enough to go anyway. I don't know. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, to start, can you share the story of how you started your career? What sparked your interest in analytics and artificial intelligence? And how did your journey evolve?
So, I hate to say it, I'm been in my career for now 30 plus years, and back in those days, that was pre-internet, pre-iPhone. That was pretty much everything, right, that you guys have available to today. So what was available to me was the idea of distinguishing myself from others. That was what the most important thing to me was, is try to figure out how I can distinguish myself from other colleagues of mine, other students of mine. And so very early on, I realized that I enjoyed business, I enjoyed economics, I enjoyed finance, I enjoyed the markets, but didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I said, do I want to go in to be a stockbroker? Do I want to be a financial planner? Do I want to be a surgeon? I had no idea. What I did know is I really enjoyed business. And I was not the type of person that liked to take risks, which if you are familiar with somebody who's a financial planner or what they used to call stockbrokers, it's all about risk, it's all about commissions, it's all about the market. And that wasn't me, right? I like to know I get a paycheck, right? No matter what the market does. And so for me, going into an area of economics gave me the opportunity to have a broad stroke understanding of the economy, of the market. And from there, you know, graduating with an economics and business degree really enabled me to start exploring my areas. He also suggests in one of his books that the reason the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up is because so at the end of the day, if you have the ability to communicate what data is telling you and you can actually wrangle that data, you are unstoppable. I guarantee that. I've seen it many, many times throughout my career.
I can relate to this. As a econometrician, I always tell my students, treat the data with great respect. They are trying to tell you a story, they are not just numbers. As someone who has been deeply involved in analytics and artificial intelligence, how have you navigated the constantly evolving landscape of these technologies? And how do you keep up with the latest trend and ensure you are always learning and adapting?
Yeah, that's a great question. So artificial intelligence has been around now for 50 to 60 years. Right? It goes way back, you know, to the concept of machine learning, then followed by neural networks, and then more recently with AI, more advanced AI, generative AI, and then what you're starting to hear now is agentic AI, the ability for something that is generated for you to actually perform tasks. That's the agentic AI. That's where the world is going. But how do you actually follow that stream? The best thing you could do is whether or not those robots are human or they're robots. It's an amazing thought, you know, that in my lifetime, I'm actually going to be standing in front of an object and I can't tell within 5 feet whether it's a human or robot. How do I know that? I've just read a lot, right? And then I start reading about quantum computing. I start reading about all these advancements that are going to take place in, areas like automobiles and things like that. So the best thing you can do is read and be part of as many alert systems as you can be part of. And then once you start finding those things are interesting to you, you drill down on them and you become part of those groups, you become part of those projects, you volunteer. I mean, that's really how you get yourself out there.
Thanks. Given that national debt is a topic on the agenda today, how can data and artificial intelligence be used to better understand and address challenges related to national debt? Are there specific tools or model that you see as game changers?
So what I would say is, so first of all, no, I'm not a very politically outspoken person, and debt, politics all play interchangeably with global politics. I typically don't speak out on that. That's just kind of my own personal philosophy. But what I will tell you is, you know, I remember back when I was in, you know, my economics class, and we were talking about global geopolitics, and professors talking about the debt and the debt ceiling, and it was a fraction of what it is today, right? It is a major problem that if we don't address, will continue to get worse. And so what can we do with artificial intelligence and machine learning and generative AI is streamline, right? That's the whole objective of what Elon Musk was doing with Doge, was trying to streamline. I think he went too far to the right, is my personal opinion. Again, not getting too political about, you know, letting people go, but it's all about finding areas of opportunity. I think right now, if you start reading some of the publications out there, what you'll notice is the government is looking at ways of leveraging artificial intelligence and generative AI to basically rewrite the budget. Look at every single line item, it's just massive. If you could imagine what a company, an individual company like a JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley or a Fidelity or a Walmart has in terms of databases and databases of transactions and financials, right? What they have to go through to report to the regulators. Imagine the government. It's terabytes, right? Terabytes of information they have to go through. And that's where generative AI can play the role, streamlining all of that. That's what ultimately they're looking to do right now, is find ways of making the actions of not only streamlining the evaluation, but then recommending where those cuts could be made, where efficiencies could be improved in the overall budgeting and resource optimization process.
Thank you. In the face of rising geopolitical tensions and economic uncertainty in the markets, mainly driven by tariff policies, how can AI be leveraged to help businesses, government, and consumers navigate supply chain disruption, trade volatility, and strategic decision-making?
So I'm a firm believer really in two things. One, education is keenly important for continued success and growth, right? What all of you are going through, what you're here to do now is great in ensuring success future, because you're leveraging that knowledge for future growth. I guarantee what you will take away from this program this week will actually help you in your careers. Trust me, I've seen it many times with projects I've done. And what I would say is, you know, no different in the government, right? I believe in education. I believe in efficiencies. So what can AI and generative AI do? It could be your arm for efficiency. It can be your arm to help you create things that might be otherwise very difficult for individuals to do. And as you coalesce, mingle, artificial intelligence, generative AI with, you know, the day-to-day operations of our government and our officials, it will make it a lot more efficient. And ultimately, the goal of educating will lead to retasking people to become successful in the new world where AI is a mainstay, right? If you think back to when you were young and there was no internet, there was no iPhones, the ability to get things done was very difficult. Right? You had to open up a phone book, you had to open the right page. These days, you know, you can literally find things in seconds, if not less than that. And then it could make phone calls. It makes everything easier. Efficiency is what we're all about. That's what AI plays, and it, you know, can't play it better than in the global geopolitical area.
Now, we have a few questions related to education and job market. So, in your view, how is artificial intelligence reshaping traditional job roles and industries? Are any jobs or tasks you see becoming obsolete? And if so, what new opportunities arise from that change?
So, on everybody's mind these days is, geez, AI is going to eliminate me. I'm no longer going to have a job. There's not going to be a need for a job. Experts estimate there's going to be anywhere between 90 and 95 million net new jobs created in the next 5 years. 90 to 95 million net new jobs. What does that mean? That means some jobs will be eliminated and there will be some new jobs, but on a net basis, 95 to 95 million new. Where those jobs will probably be eliminated are in areas that are more labor skilled oriented jobs, assembly line type jobs, manufacturing, where they can automate the assembly lines. So what do we need to do? We need to reskill those people. It's not that they're not needed anymore. It's not that their skills aren't needed. They are absolutely needed. They're just going to be retooled to work alongside with artificial intelligence. They're already starting to, for example, do surgeries with doctors. So you have surgeons working alongside artificial intelligence robots. Yes, they can do the surgeries more efficiently. They can do it in a timelier manner without any emotions. But guardrails are in place to ensure that there is doctors, nurses, technical staff in the room to ensure that whole process is seamless. We are never going to be in a society, because of the guardrails we have, where these things completely operate on their own. So my message to you is twofold. One, don't fear the unknown. Embrace it. Make sure that you leverage artificial intelligence in your day-to-day and in your schooling to the best you can to skill yourself to the point where you are looked at on a resume, looked at in person as somebody who is a valued member who has capabilities of understanding where things are going. Doesn't mean you have to be an expert. It just means you have to be somebody who understands how to let that part of your day-to-day life.
Thank you. How about the new opportunities in industries like finance, healthcare, and government that very closely related to most of our business education?
So healthcare is a big one. You know, the ability to diagnose and treat diseases. You know, take for example COVID. You know, any other time in our history, the ability to mine the kind of data that was required to create vaccines, whether you agree with vaccines or not, you know, isn't the question. It's the amount of data, the amount of capabilities for our science organizations, our science infrastructure to actually go through and then create outcomes that very quickly we're able to produce results that save many lives is remarkable. That wasn't possible 30 years ago at that speed. And it will be even more possible as we go forward. There are so many diseases, cancers and autoimmune diseases that are very difficult for common science today to deal with those. And one of the things that is so great about artificial intelligence is its ability to mine data quickly, tell a story, give recommendations without any form of bias, provided that it's not hallucinating. And I'm sure everybody here has heard of that word, hallucinating. It's actually a term that I've used almost at the end of every meeting I have at RBC. Remember, we have to make sure that it's not hallucinating. Why? Because financial advisors who are meeting with clients on an everyday basis are using information that we're suggesting for them. And if it's not factually correct information, then at the end of the day, we're doing not right by our clients. So, financial services, manufacturing, healthcare, all of these industries are using AI, generative AI, agentic AI to drive the bottom line. And over the next 10 years, it's going to skyrocket. So, just a point to reiterate, the more that you could infuse that in your day-to-day lives, the more likely you will be successful in your jobs.
Thank you. For students interested in pursuing careers in artificial intelligence or data analytics, what academic or extracurricular activities should they prioritize during college to best prepare themselves for the workforce?
So, I've managed many folks over the years, master's degrees, PhDs, statisticians. And the one thing I always tell them is you have to be able to tell a story out of data. If you can't tell a story out of data, then all it is just data points. Right? And you'd be surprised. People in the business are extremely bright, they're sharp, they're great at marketing, they're great at product development, they're great at distribution, but if they don't have a background in data science and analytics and AI, they're not great at understanding data. We excel at understanding data, and so it all starts with being able to tell a story. Now, how do you do that? The most important thing to be able to tell a story is understand your objective. If you're focused on the micro level, just actually doing a capstone project with some students at Carnegie Mellon, and very often, the students were talking about, well, I have to code this, and I need to look at this data from Twitter, and I need to do that. I said, no, let's take it back. What is your objective? What are you trying to achieve? And very often, focusing on things from a top-down perspective versus bottom-up always ensures that whatever you are doing grounds you in your ability to tell a story. Because it all ties back to the objective.
Thank you. This will lead to the next questions. While technical skills are essential, as you mentioned, soft skills like communication and critical thinking are equally important in workplace. How can college help students to develop technical and soft skills to prepare them to work in data-heavy industries?
Look, I think it's important people, have obviously hard skills, the ability to code. So like in your personal time, pick up a Python book, pick up a data mining book, pick up a book on, Tableau or visualization, or Tufte's book on how to visualize, help tell a story. But the soft skills are keenly important too. How to communicate, how to effectively structure a story, how to communicate a story. All of that is critically important, and there is a theme. I don't care if you're presenting to the CEO or you're presenting to a colleague of yours, within a department. It all has a storyline, and that storyline is very common. Goals, objectives, methodology, your research, your findings, your recommendations, how to implement, cost, timing, et cetera, et cetera. All the things that you guys are going to be doing over the next few days in your projects, right? And what I would say colleges and students can do to prepare is structure things in the form of actual daily project, life projects. So for example, the outcome of a 2 or 3 month coursework could be a presentation to a company like an RBC, where you're suggesting that based on some problem that you're identifying, here's what they can actually do based on your analysis to overcome that problem. In the case of this capstone project, I mentioned this group of 5 students identified ways that RBC could market itself in the US. Most of you probably have not heard of RBC in the US because we have a 3% brand recognition. In Canada, 90%. Why only 3% in the US? Because the main players like Wells, Morgan Stanley, UBS, Merrill Lynch, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America are the main staples that you see and hear about on the street. What could we do to increase that brand? That was their task. That was their goal. And now RBC is actually considering presenting some of those findings to some of our senior leaders, because there are actually quality recommendations in there that may lead some of those students to get jobs. So what I would impart on you is think about your particular coursework, not as oh, I got to get this done for my grade. Think about it as, I got to get this done because this is going to lead me to skills that I can use on my job and deliver on a daily basis in my career.
Can you share with us any of those findings, or they're secretive?
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, we have very limited marketing exposure. We don't spend a lot of money on advertising, whether that be specifically in publications, whether it be in TV ads, some of our marketing with financial advisors. I think what they also noticed is, and they did a whole sentiment analysis using artificial intelligence on Twitter data. It was very interesting. What they found is, a lot of people aren't talking about RBC in the context of financial planning. They're talking about more in this concept of banking, right? And so, one of their thought process is, what if we were able to present your company as a expert in the area of wealth transfer, right? Something that's on the minds of not only people who are 70, 80, 90 years old, but also on their children, their grandchildren, right? We know that the intergenerational wealth transfer over the next 10 to 20 years is tremendous, more so than it's ever been before. And so, if we're able to present ourselves as experts in that way, we're not only branding ourselves to the marketplace, we're branding ourselves as the place to come to for this particular need, which happens to be a major need. Now, imagine, when think about I guess akin would be automobiles. When automobiles first, started and progressed over the years, all these companies, domestic and international, emerged. But we didn't have until a number of years ago, this innovator, Elon Musk, came out with Tesla, right? Now, there are obviously other competitors, but why did he excel? Why did his company excel? Because he is an innovator, because of the product, right? So if we can excel as an innovator in the areas of wealth transfer, legacy planning, then it's unstoppable. That's much more than if we spent $100 million on TV advertising.
Thank you. For students here today considering career in analytics or artificial intelligence, are there any common mistakes they should avoid as they enter this field?
That's a great question. Well, one thing I'll tell you that always, it's kind of like a funny story. Like, very often, I will have a new analyst, really excited and passionate. I love passion, I love excitement, I love the innovativeness in thinking. But the quick reaction to drive to a decision or conclusion sometimes gets you in trouble. So my advice to you as you're going through the beginning of your career is don't jump to the conclusion. Let the data tell a story, again, keeping in mind the overall objective of the problem or opportunity you're trying to solve for. And, think about it. Is this really the story that needs to be told? Is this really the story the data is telling me? And kind of a funny thing that analysts always say is that data can tell any story you want it to tell, which is something that you have to be very careful, because often you will be faced, and I guarantee you in your career, you will be faced with a decision, the internal battle. Do I do what my business partner wants me to do, which may not be completely ethical in telling a story about the data, or do I do what's right for the organization, my clients, shareholders, and what I think the data really is saying? And it's always the latter. It is always the ethical thing to do, right? So definitely never make the mistake of taking your business partner's request for data to tell it a certain story. And trust me, you will be faced with that. I'm still faced with that in my career. And I very often tell people no. But, leverage your partners, leverage your manager in those kind of cases. And first and foremost, never jump to conclusions. Let the data tell the story and make sure, you understand what it's saying, it's accurate. And then most importantly, you vetted it with some of your trusted
Okay. The next two questions deal with some of the main concern about artificial intelligence and analytics. First one, with the growing use of AI and data analytics, what ethical concerns should organization and individual be mindful of when using AI tools in decision making, particularly around privacy and bias?
That's a great question. And, I don't know of any industry that's more regulated than finance. Maybe healthcare is another one, with all the HIPAA laws and regulations governing the use of medical information, but financial information is very closely watched. Just to give you an example, imagine we have thousands of data fields about a particular client, right? All of us have banking accounts, credit cards, things like that. So collectively, that's thousands of different data fields among hundreds of databases and millions and millions and millions of, right? Petabytes of data, huge. Every one of those data elements have a score of their confidentiality, the risk, the way it can and can't be used. And why we do that is because regulators want to make sure that we have structure in place when developing statistical models, when sharing information across the firm, right? There's various walls within the firm that you can't just cleanly share information. There's different divisions. And it has to be very clear to us, the users, and the consumers, what is and what isn't allowed based on the information that we have. So every single data element, for example, has a certain level of confidentiality. Now, taking it more broadly, what I would say is, financial services, healthcare, manufacturing has a very strict set of policies and procedures that govern it. Every organization has, operational risk, model risk, architectural risk, government risk. Each one of those areas of the organization have due diligence. And I'll give you an example. It could take on average anywhere between 3 and 6 months to get a use case, like a generative AI use case implemented. Why? Because what we want to make sure at the end of the day is that there is no way that, for example, any of the data that we have could ever make its way into a public large language model. It could ever be stored in a large language model. It could ever be used in public consumption. So we have to show all of the proof points on the architectural risk side, and the model risk side, how each step of the data consumption and data usage is actually being deployed, and that there are walls disabling information from being stored, shared, or used for any purposes. And while it does take a while, I commonly tell people at the company, look, it's going to take a while to get these things done. So we have to work in tandem with all these different organizations within the firm. It is actually for the right thing to do for our clients, our shareholders, and obviously the financial services industry as a whole. Because we don't ever want any company being tagged with the perspective that what we're doing isn't the safest thing that could be done for, our clients. I would say, in practicality, there's a cost benefit weighing between the amount of work that we have to do from a compliance perspective and the time it takes to get things done. So there's a healthy balance of testing without using it for business purposes to see what things are like. But once you want to use it for business purposes, you got channels to get things done. And they're very complex, but they're there for the right reason.
Thank you. As artificial intelligence becomes more integrated into workplaces, there is a concern that human judgment may be sidelined. And how do you balance leveraging AI for data analytics while maintaining the human aspect of decision-making in critical areas like policy and finance?
So many of us take trains, take trains and other forms of, transportation. In many of those today, there's artificial intelligence being used. Will be more. Eventually, artificial intelligence will make decisions, but today, for example, autopilot is a form of artificial intelligence that is worked alongside professional pilots. And I think, understanding that these automations take place and are there to better our lives and improve our lives and streamline things like, moving around bad weather to avoid turbulence, being careful with fuel consumption for cost and economies perspective is important. But at the end of the day, the guardrails we have in place don't allow these kinds of capabilities to supersede the right and appropriate time that a human is in the loop. And, for me in financial services, especially, we're never going to have an instance where automation, where artificial intelligence, machine learning, generative AI, agentic AI, whatever you want to call it, is going to circumvent the financial advisor. They're always going to be front and center. Why? Because we're in a relationship business. Doctors are in a relationship business. Manufacturing is in a production business, right? These things are all about human elements to them, and artificial intelligence doesn't have that human element. Now, 20, 30 years from now, they will act like humans, but like I said, guardrails will be in place to avoid them from completely superseding humans in action, in daily activities and decision making completely.
Okay. as data becomes more central to decision making, how vital is data visualization? What are some best practice for turning complex data sets into actionable insights for non-technical stakeholders?
So, if I think back about 30 years ago, a lot of the analytics we used to do was based on raw data. You take a database, you use some applications, you put that data in Excel or whatever it was at that time, and then you would start looking at the data and you would say, what is it telling me? What's the distributions? Where am I seeing some holes? There are so many tools today that enable you to do the visualization, help you develop models, and integrate it all as one, which is great, right? That ability has taken analytics, tenfold where it was 20, 30 years ago. But the one thing it doesn't do is structure concepts for you. What does that mean? That means that it doesn't know your business problem, doesn't understand the challenge of your business problem or opportunity. That's the expertise you bring into it. And no matter how advanced the visualizations, the machine learning is, the artificial intelligence, you need to be there thinking about it from top down, right? So if you start seeing visualizations, you have to determine, does this apply? Does this help me with my outcome? Does this help me visualize the goal I'm trying to achieve with my business problem? That's for you to figure out, not for the system to know or figure out. So you got to keep that in mind. That's keeping the concept of it. The other thing to keep in mind is how the data needs to be structured to start to tell a story. Am I telling a story about a household? Am I telling a story about a business? Am I telling a story about manufacturing? How do I need to consume the information up front so that the system can aid me in telling the right story? That's also, right? So it may help you in the middle, but up front, your construction, that's where the art of decision sciences comes in. And then the outcome, that's where the art of telling the story comes in. That's all on us as analysts, as decision scientists. And that's not where the system excels. The system excels in running, zeros and ones. We excel in telling the story and understanding, how to create the details that will be consumed so that the story can be told.
My last question. How can college partner with industries to ensure their students gain real-world experience with data and AI tools? Are internships and projects sufficient, or should there be other collaborative opportunities?
I think a couple of things I would say. Number one, I love the concept of partnering on projects, right? Having a mini team, 5, 6, 7 people, maybe even multiple teams, working with a subject expert within a company, like, for example, RBC, and holding that team accountable for everything from the business problem identification to how are you planning on structuring it, who does what role, having weekly cadence meetings to uncover how everybody's doing, what are the problems, how do I overcome those problems, all the way through recommendations, is a very effective way of not only completing coursework, but also potentially solving real life business problems. And you're doing it in a way, whether you are a freshman or senior or a graduate student, you're doing it in a way that actually would be how we do it in real life. That's what I love. I've done that many times in partnership with schools throughout my career. I think the other area besides capstone projects could be having subject experts from companies come and partner with you on coursework. So if a professor is talking about something specific to graph databases, you have somebody from maybe a financial services company or healthcare company talk about how they use graph databases in real life, right? So it not only is a textbook exercise, it is a real life exercise. And what I hope you take away from that at the end of the day is when you're doing your assignment, the assignment is done with, oh, I remember what Mary said, or I remember what Paul said in their day-to-day work about graph databases that I can apply here. And it becomes real life. It becomes more important for you. It becomes something that you can take into your career. So I think that those are some simple ways that you can leverage the industry to give back.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll start our Q&A session. How much time do we have? 2 hours? Good, good. Great. Any questions?
Firstly, thank you so much for coming and speaking to us today. I know we all really appreciate it. My name is Brianna Garrison. I'm representing St. John's University.
All right.
So,
Welcome.
thank you so much. So I think part of what makes technology and AI so exciting is how rapidly it's evolving and changing. And you offered really valuable advice, which is to read a lot in order to stay up to date. Can you recommend any specific resources or publications that you think are most helpful for you to stay up to date with your job?
It's a very good question. I would say probably partnering with some of the leading companies out there. So, for example, Amazon, Google, Meta, Anthropic, even going with companies like OpenAI. Reading publications like the technical section of the Wall Street Journal would be good. But where you will find most of the innovations happening are at some of these large hyperscalers, like the Microsofts, like the Amazons. They're the ones that have the money. They're leading some of these major Stargate type initiatives. You may have heard of the $500 billion initiative, partnering with companies like Amazon to really create a U.S.-based center of excellence around AI. So we're viewed in the world as leaders in AI. It's being able to link to those companies, and you will just see tons and tons of information. Connect to their websites, connect to their LinkedIn groups, and become part of their social media. You will probably even get things more recent than I do because I'm not on like all the social media sites every day, to be honest with you. I know a lot of you probably are. And even, I hate to say it, TikTok is probably launching things more quickly than the Wall Street Journal is, right? And so being on these sites and, using, the thumbs down to actually indicate your interest levels, there's AI out there to suggest then more of that. So start with going to LinkedIn, identify all of the major companies out there doing AI and Gen AI. I mentioned probably 6 or 7 of them. Make sure you subscribe to all of those, and then they will have a corpus of sites you can go to become. Great question, and thank you for the first one.
Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for taking the time. I'm Nathan from the University of Waterloo, so we're quite familiar with RBC. You mentioned agentic AI, and I was wondering how you see it fitting into the financial services industries. Is there any services that are most better to be enabled by these agents?
That's a great question. I think one of the things we really want to do for our advisors is streamline their day-to-day. Right? The average financial advisor has anywhere between 150 and 180 households. And regulatory will require every year to speak to them. But obviously, you want to speak to them frequently to maintain and grow their relationships. How do you do that effectively? You automate as much of their tasks as you can. Some of the things we're doing, pre-meeting preparation. Right? You have to meet with the household. Wouldn't it be amazing if you can go into someplace, click a button, and all of a a sudden, you know, the last year's worth of information gets actually summarized for you, all your activities, your notes, your emails, what you like to be called as a, you know, friend or colleague, you know, your nickname, all of that comes up in a matter of a couple of seconds, right in your fingertips. You can use that meeting in minutes, not hours, not days. Same thing with post meeting. Or what I love is the ability to go in natural language, like ChatGPT, ask a question. In the event that a household passes away for argument's sake, what do? It gives me all the things that it needs to do, right? That's great information, you know? It's at my fingertips. I know everything I need to do, but I don't want to actually sit there and do it. I want the system to do it for me. The first thing it says is, do you want me to freeze the account to avoid fraud? Yes. The difference between Gen AI and agentic AI is just that. Gen AI is creating information for you, telling you what you should know. Agentic AI says, okay, now that you know that, let me actually lock or freeze that account for you. That's where agentic AI is. And over the next 5 years, you're going to see tons and tons of use cases, not only in financial services, but around all industries. It's all about creating efficiency and, you know, developing more time. Good question.
Hello, thank you so much for your talk today. My name is Chando. I'm also representing St. John's. So you talked a lot about data storytelling, and that's also an area that I really want to grow in. And understanding the audience, I believe, is important. Do you have any tips on how to understand the audience better, especially as we go into the industry as college students? We might not have the best knowledge of people who've been working in the industry for so many years, and especially from coming from a place where we know the data, but we might not understand their perspective or understand where they're coming from. Do you have any tips on how to understand the other side or their perspective in maybe a shorter span or shorter time frame? Thank you.
So that's a great question. I would say the first thing you want to do is go out and research what are the top 5 to 10 things that affect this industry. I don't know a whole lot about manufacturing, right? Dust is an issue in manufacturing because it affects the quality of the assembly line, right? If I did research, I would know that. So the first thing you would do, in just simple terms, write to ChatGPT, tell me the top 5 or 10 things I need to know for this particular industry. Once you start understanding that, you can almost put yourself in the perspective or the lens of an individual that works in that industry. You'll know enough at that point to start asking questions of something like ChatGPT or Google or other sources to educate yourself. That's kind of like the upfront. Let me learn a little bit more about the industry. Then you want to understand the players of the industry. Who are some of the notable folks I want to know of? In the case of automotive, for example, and autonomous vehicles, clearly, Waymo, clearly, folks at Tesla, you want to understand who they are, what they're making, what they're thinking, because they're driving where the industry is going. And if you're having particular meetings with people, if you're having conferences with people, use something like LinkedIn. Learn who those people are, what schools they went to, what things you have in common with them, commonalities, some of their job progression. All of those things become a corpus of knowledge for you to leverage in your conversations with them. It also helps you understand a little bit of the perspective they came from, right? And where you may be able to fit in a little bit with them. Make sense? Great.
I think we have room for one final question. Okay, this is my workout today. So.
Hi, my name is. Oh, where is it? Hi, my name is Renata. I'm from St. Mary's College of California. And my question for you is, what has surprised you the most about recent developments in AI and how has it affected your work?
I would say what has surprised me the most is how quickly things happen. You know, we talked earlier about how you stay up to date. I can't read that fast. I can't consume information that fast. Things are moving so quickly. Right? So the idea is you stay abreast of what's going on. Moving so quickly. So my advice is not to try to consume everything, but consume as much as you can really well. Indeed, having broad knowledge on a few things versus a little bit on everything is more effective. And I think what is most surprising to me is people's concern about the receptiveness of all this, right? You have very, 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 you have a contingency of people who are like, I never use it. And part of that is misconceptions about what it is and what it isn't, how it works, what it's doing and not doing, guardrails that are in place. That's part of the reason why when we go through any use case with compliance and legal and risk and operations, we have to go through and show them everything, beginning of data inception through the actual end state of the information being shared and how the data flows and what is and isn't happening. But my goal, for example, with financial advisors is to get them a little bit of a taste in something that's comfortable and build slowly from there. Right? And hopefully, the industry starts seeing that you have basic things like ChatGPT providing information maybe a little bit easier than Google does, then you'll be open to the idea of letting it actually perform tasks for you. A wire transfer or moving money between checking and saving. Today, I'm most surprised by people's lack of willingness to try these things. And I just say, you know, I recently was talking at a university and I said, all you need to do is try. Go to ChatGPT, just try it. And that's the way to the basics of AI. If you can't get past that, it's going to be very difficult for you to get comfortable with agentic AI. I'm a little surprised by that, but more and more companies are spending money, and the big names, trusted names like Amazon and Google, and, Microsoft are out there talking about these things. The more likely people will be comfortable. That's part of the reason why OpenAI was having some challenges with Elon Musk. If you recall recently in the news, he was concerned about them becoming a public company and being for-profit as opposed to what they originally were designed to do, which was be not-for-profit. And the whole purpose there is we're building something for the betterment of society, not to generate revenue. Right? And so there's a lot of conflict there, but more and more of the Apples and the Amazons and the Microsofts are talking out, and these trusted companies are going to help society become more comfortable.
Okay, thanks. Well, on behalf of O'Malley School of Business and Manhattan University, we are grateful for your time and for sharing all these wonderful stories with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, Dear Mr. Solganik and Dear Dean Gergis, for such a wonderful and engaging talk. So it's not working. Maybe better to fix it here. All right. So now it's a party time for you. Are you ready? Hope so. Okay, let me bring up the other file. Okay. All right, so please scan this QR code to figure out which poster number is assigned to your team. It's for the other students' team. So this will show you your assigned poster number. This round will be a traditional poster session, meaning, have you ever been to any conference before? If not, I will explain how it goes. So please go downstairs. The other poster session will be held on the fourth floor of this building, just the one downstairs. And when you go to the other conference, and if you're presenting your poster, so-called traditional poster session will be like you will stand in front of your poster, and the audience will come to you and ask questions. So please explain what you prepared and what you analyzed for the past couple of the months at your home institution, and the team of or a single faculty advisor from the other institutions will evaluate. So the 6 to 7 faculty advisors from other schools will be scheduled to visit you, but there's no order. So be prepared to present your poster for the entire poster session. Since we have a little bit lengthy talk, inspiring talk. So I would like to start our poster session at 5:20 so that you have enough time to prepare yourself. And the poster session will run from the 5:20 to 7:20 for 2 hours. So for the entire 2 hours, you will greet the 6 to 7 faculty advisors, and then you will be presenting your poster to them. And for the other faculty advisors, please check your email. You should have received a message containing a link, and this link will allow you to confirm your preferred the method of the evaluation, either paper or the online version. So if you choose the paper version, please stop by the front desk to pick up the evaluation materials. So we all prepared. But if you opt in for the online version, then you can just proceed, follow the link, and then you will be redirected to the evaluation form. So for the other faculty advisors, please make sure spend enough time for each team you are supposed to evaluate so that you can fully provide the other valuable feedback for those teams. We are looking forward to seeing your fantastic work downstairs. Let the poster session begin.